Russian President Vladimir Putin fired back at the West and its European allies over Russian sanctions. I'm going to paraphrase what he said here on the world stage. The Ukrainian situation, he said, shows that the U.S. wants to prolong this conflict. This is just what they do in provoking for conflict in Asia, Africa, and South America. He then pointed to Taiwan, saying that the U.S. adventure to Taiwan is not just the actions of one irresponsible politician. It's a conscious and targeted strategy of the United States to destabilize the region and the world. It's evident, he said, that Western global elites are attempting to distract their own citizens from very dire socioeconomic problems, living standards, poverty, etc. And then he touted his relationship with China for, as he said, standing up for their own point of view. And just this morning, we're learning that the Chinese military will send troops to Russia for joint exercises. NBC reports that the exercises are, quote, unrelated to the current international and regional situation, according to China's defense ministry.
Meanwhile, Western media is giving Ukrainian President Zelensky the royal treatment. Zelensky gave an exclusive interview with the Washington Post and made headlines after he suggested that countries within the European Union should ban any Russian citizens from traveling. He suggested, quote, a ban on the entry of all citizens of the Russian Federation to the European Union. The Finnish prime minister is on the side of Zelensky, apparently, and has drastically cut Russian tourist visas.
I know the Russian people didn't start the war, but at the same time, we have to realize that they are supporting the war. I think it's not right that Russian citizens can travel, enter Europe, Schengen area, be tourists, see the sightseeings while Russia is killing people in Ukraine. It's wrong.
However, German Prime Minister Olaf Scholz rebuked the travel ban idea on Russian citizens, saying, quote, this is not the war of the Russian people. It is Vladimir Putin's war. So there are a couple things there I wanted to discuss. So I agree with the German Prime Minister. What good is it to punish Russian citizens for what their government is doing? That's the kind of collective guilt or collective punishment that I think all people should really oppose. And also it doesn't, I don't think, serve any tactical goal. Probably the Russian people most interested in visiting other European countries are probably more likely to support or be sympathetic to what Ukraine is going for, or what they're trying to get out of Russia. We want to trap them in Russia, keep them in Russia, keep them from interacting with other European or Western people or policies or media sources. That's just a recipe for keeping Russian people under the thumb of their authoritarian administration. And that's the Cuban embargo strategy. Doesn't work very well. We've tried it a million times, just doesn't work.
Yeah, I think on its face kind of morally bankrupt. I don't think it's fair to judge the citizens of an enormous nation for the acts of its leaders, especially when the West has so many critiques of democracy in the country, to try to impute what Putin does to the citizenry when you're at the same time saying that he's, a dictator and an autocrat and he hasn't been elected democratically. It seems to me it's an admission that, of course, the people didn't have a lot of say in it. And obviously, when you think about what that would mean if America was judged by a similar standard with such a bifurcated country, with half of the country being very supportive of kind of Trumpism and half of the country not, some foreign country saying because of Trump you can't travel or because of Biden you cannot travel would certainly rankle a lot of folks here at home. Right. I guess the question is, do you think it is about trying to create dissent within Russia from people who might have a passive disinterest or distaste for Putin, hoping that it irritates folks enough that there is more internal pressure that Putin has to contend with because of the travel ban? Yeah,
that's the strategy. That strategy just clearly never works. I don't know why we keep going to it. We want to reward dissension in Russia, not make Russians so miserable that they're going to rise up. That's not going to happen. We've gone through this so many times. I will say, as for Putin's remarks earlier that you paraphrased, while you and I have both been critical of steps the U.S. government has taken to get us to this point, and what the U.S. response has been, I still don't love hearing from Vladimir Putin this all, blame the U.S. That we're provoking conflict. Okay, well, you're the person with the troops in the other country. So, who is provoking conflict here? I think that should be a reminder that, whatever the missteps of the U.S., in crafting, in how we handled NATO, et cetera, and in our continuing to fund the Ukrainian defense without pushing for any kind of diplomatic resolution, all fine to condemn. This is still ultimately on one person that we're, having this conflict play out. Vladimir Putin ordered the troops to invade. Now, there's dispute, obviously, over whose territory it is, but war is never the answer. War should never be the resort. And they chose this. Nobody else made them. They being Putin's regime chose this. Nobody made them. They did it. And now here we are.
Well, look, here's the issue, and this came up recently when we were talking about the member of the African People's Socialist Party whose home was raided last month and who has been accused and named as, in this investigation, as a Russian proxy, a Russian asset. And the reason is that he is articulating a criticism of the U.S. government that certainly no black person needs to be spoon-fed from Vladimir Putin, but which is a line of attack that Putin has been using, right? So I was asked this question in the context of the 2019-2020 primary season. Briahna, what do you make of the fact that so many black Americans are being duped into sharing Russian misinformation posts on Facebook that point to the ways that the American government has failed its black population? I mean, I don't know how to answer that other than it's true. It's true, and to the extent that Russia is exploiting a true fact, the answer is to make the underlying condition not true, not to accuse people of falling for Russian propaganda when it's not propaganda if it's just opportunistically exploiting real conditions on the ground. So, I feel similarly about some of the other characterizations of Vladimir Putin here. Vladimir Putin is, of course, a but-for cause of invading Ukraine. I also am, hesitant to, just wave away the broader critique of, the desire for the West to distract from economic struggles, high gas prices, an impending food crisis, all of these things, which of course Putin has played a role in creating. But I don't want to be so reactionary that I'm not able to acknowledge the truth just because Putin also happens to have said it. And obviously that's not to say the total sum of Putin's comments, I agree, are true. But I do think that he is adept at threading a needle and lacing enough kind of reality in with a lot of his statements that in a way that makes him seem credible to the desired audience.
Right, and the longer this goes on, the more the Ukrainian opposition, the more Zelensky's government takes on, and I don't want to draw a complete equivalency by any stretch of the imagination. Again, as I said, I condemn Putin for doing this. I think this is his fault. He's the most direct moral blamed person here. But Zelensky, in outlawing rival political factions, centralizing the media, he's a very effective kind of propaganda figure. All sorts of Western celebrities, interviews with them, meetings with them, is ruling in a way that we would certainly criticize if we were not so myopically focused on maintaining his power and continuing to support this person. We would condemn plenty of this, and it should not stop us from condemning illiberalism on our own side just because it's on our own side, especially when standing against illiberalism is the thing we're claiming to do. I mean, what is the principle at stake if the person we're defending on our own side increasingly comes to resemble the kind of thing we say we're against? It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, we'll have more Rising right after this. Stay with us.